Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Bhadram Karnebhihi Shrunuyama Devah Bhadram Pashyema Akshabhiryajatrah Sthirairangaistuštubhagum Sastanubhihi Vyashema Devahitan Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vriddhashravah Swasti na Pusha Vishwavedah Swasti nastarkshyo Arishtanemihi Swasti no Brihaspatir Dadhatu Om Shanti 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvisha Vahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So as you know, we have been reviewing the Karikas by Sri Gaudapadacharya on the 7th mantra of the Upanishad. This is what has been going on. So the 7th mantra itself is a gist of the entire Mandukya Upanishad, and that gist needs to be commented on so that we can understand the importance of it. So that is the reason for the Karikas from number 11 onwards, and this is what we have been doing. Let us read the next Karika, number 16, which these are all connected, and then go into the meaning of that to see how it helps us to understand why my life is not perfect. What is it that's keeping me from gaining what my right is, the right of all beings, and especially the human beings, is to leave this body completely free. This is what our goal is. And why is it that we're not able to reach that goal is the subject of the discussion of these Karikas. So let's read number 16. Anadi mayaya suptaha yada jiva prabudhyate ajam annidrama swapnam advaitam buddhyate tada. Anadi mayaya suptaha yada jiva prabudhyate ajam anidrama swapnam advaitam buddhyate tada. So it says, having been ignorant of, Swami Paramatmananda added Turiya, because that is the main subject. Having been ignorant of Turiya due to the beginningless Maya, when the jiva awakens, then he knows the non-dual Turiya, which is birthless, dreamless, and sleepless. So what it means is that the the order of the creation is that when a jiva takes a form in a given life, when we were so-called born, then we undergo three common experiences throughout our life. All of us, regardless of where we are born, what our ethnicity is, what our gender is, what our skin color is, whatever, doesn't matter. Every human being has been designed by the creator of the whole tamasha, creator of the entire play. Really, it's a play. It's a very sophisticated play. And multiple stages of the screen. And it looks very real. So anyway, the creator of this whole tamasha has given a common set of experiences for everyone. This is what we need to grasp, to put our thoughts into it. And those are from the very beginning. The moment the baby is born, right up to the point of leaving the body. You go through these common experiences. And what are those? So the whole experience is divided into each day. And the experiences of the day are now repeated, circular. I remember Swami Dayanand used to say that. He said, a very fundamental part of the creation is to do things in a circle. Even a so-called straight line is nothing but a series of circles. And similarly, the human body, even though it looks like a start and the end, it is really not so, because it is meant to be expressed in circles, and it appears that it ends, but it doesn't end. The circle continues. I remember Swamiji used to say that. He says, when I started really thinking about this creation of Ishvara, he said, I could see that from a macro standpoint, was circle. Because the earth moves around the sun moves around some other things, the galaxy moves around, and so it's a circular structure. He says, I could understand that. But he says, what was really most fascinating to me, Swamiji was saying, was the discovery that even at the micro level, it is done in a circular way. And I remember Swamiji was very fond of explaining this. You know, he used to tell me, he used to tell us, not me, but he'd tell us, all the students. He says, you know, just think about it. So you have a hand which is touching a table. And what appears is a solid surface of your hand touching the solid surface of the table. This is what the appearance is. All of our common experiences. Not so. What is happening, and Swamiji must have really looked into this scientifically, and he was very fond of explaining this, that in effect what happens is your hand as well as the table, everything, is a series of circular motions. There are atoms consisting of electrons, particles that are moving around in circles. Then what happens to the solidity of the hand and the table? All it is that the magnetic forces of the hand brushes against the magnetic forces of the table, and the magnetic forces are contained in the circular motion of these electrons. And so really, when you put your hand like this and it cannot go anymore, you know what really happens is that the combined magnetic force of the table rejects the magnetic force of your hand. And it is circulating, continuously circulating. That's all that happens. Anyway, I just wanted to give you some commentary on that ride. It reminded me. Anyway, so the human life consists of a circle. The day is a circle. The human, if you were to just, supposing you were to write history, and your history would be, I was born in such and such place, and that the normal history. It's kind of like the hand touching the table. But really the essence of the life is the moment you are born, you go into a daily circle. And the daily circle has 3 mini circles. And you're going back and forth. And we know what the mini circles are by now. This is what the whole Upanishad is all about. The mini circles are the waking circle. It starts, there's some variability. You can wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, or you can wake up at later. You can go to sleep at 10. You can go to sleep at 1 o'clock, but finally you collapse. So the Jagrat Avastha is a circle that in turn gives to, so this is very interesting, the way the creation works. You cannot go directly from one avastha to the other without going through deep sleep. In the deep sleep, all of your projections are suspended. And I was just reading just a quick side effect. I see all the news about the world, Google News and so on. And so once in a while there will be a report on The need for dreaming and sleeping. This is the scientific view. And there, it's very funny, because the science begin to see, why do we dream? Why do we need to dream? They can never figure it out. And some people even say, why do we need to sleep? We can rest, just close your eyes and, just breathe and you'll be okay. Why do we need to completely go to a different circle altogether? Anyway, there was this recent article that appeared in the Times of India that I was reading, and there were some doctors who were explaining the phenomena of dreaming. So, phenomena of dreaming meaning that why is it that we our mind goes haywire, and why is it that we don't remember it? And they were explaining about the left side of the, all these technical words, that becomes active, and then this becomes active, the other one becomes inactive. That's why the memory, the long-term memory, as though they are trying to figuring it all out and so on. The basic part is, this is part, as we have known that very well, this is a very deliberate creation to allow you to analyze your circular experience throughout your life. Jagrat Avastha. Oh yeah, this is what I was saying and I didn't complete that thought. The interesting thing is you cannot go from a waking state to a dream state without going through deep sleep, even if it's for just a second. Like for example, supposing you wake up in the middle of a dream, okay? They say technically, that Vedanta says this, technically, even for a few split seconds, you always have to go through this neutral state before you go into a different state. So this is what happens. When you go to sleep, you go from Jagrata Avastha to Sushupti Avastha, then to Swapna Avastha, back to Sushupti Avastha, then Jagrata Avastha. Anyway, the point is, this circular creation which is common to all of us, all of our life, is not just for fun and games, not incidental, it is not random, it is not casual. You want to understand where is Paramatma, where is Ishvara, how does it work? Observe his handiwork every day in the day. Every day of your life. It is in fact a very deliberate creation. What is deliberate about it? And why? What is the purpose of it? Deliberate means there is a purpose. What is the purpose for it? This is what we are studying in the Karika. So the Karika says, my dear student, are you listening? Are you serious? Do you want to grow up? Or do you want to just go through this life uninquiring into the very basic of what is happening? You can do that, and this is what we do. We go from birth to the death and we say, okay, this life is over. And we weep and say, oh, that person died and this person, and new births come up. Normal stuff. But in and through this circular structure of the then you should just put on your thinking hat and say, my God, what is going on in here? Where's the message? Where is, and this is really, so the crux of it is, and this is what Karika's 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, and 16 are saying. You need to analyze the experiences and do a viveka, discrimination. Start vichara, think about it. You are hidden in those experiences. You are the one who is hidden in those experiences. And you are not recognizing yourself as a common element in all the three. You're only involved in the changing aspect of it. And that you can only do by analyzing, understanding. It is really all viveka. See what the differences are. See what the common elements are. And then you will begin to see that you are missing a most important common element in all of them, which is you. This is the purpose of the Karika. It was interesting. I was in reading the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. There was one verse which I thought was very relevant to this topic of discrimination. How do you slowly make your mind more subtle so you don't miss the obvious? It's like missing the obvious. I think there was a story that Swami Dayananji once had given. I'll never forget it. I think I've said that before, but in the illustration of missing the obvious, there was a story given by Swami Dayananji. And he is very fond of the story. He used to tell us a lot. And it's just important to see that. The story is that of Sherlock Holmes and his assistant, Dr. Watson. Sherlock Holmes was a very smart person who was a solver of murders and crimes in England. And he had an assistant who he would be with, who was not very smart, but nevertheless he was very devoted to his companion. Dr. Watson was very devoted to Sherlock Holmes. And so this was the couple. They were always together. So there's a lot of books written on it. I mean, I haven't read many, but I may have read one or two, I don't know. But this is a very famous way of depicting a person who's solver of problems, who's very discriminative, who's very subtle in his thinking, and his assistant who is much less so. So it appears that one time Sherlock Holmes told Dr. Watson that, Dr. Watson, we live in London, which has got so many lights. It's a city. And you know what? I really don't see the stars at night. I love to see the stars at night. So let's do this. Let's go away on a hike and we will pitch a tent and out in the mountains away from the city lights. And I want to really gaze up and look at the sky with all of the beautiful stars shining. And I want to do that. Is it okay? So Dr. Watson said, okay, fine, let's do that. So they both went out. They lit a campfire, enjoyed the meal, put the fire out. And in the meantime, they put a tent up. And there were lots of other tents around them also. And so they put a tent up. And because it was cold, and so they did that, and they got into their sleeping bags, and they went to sleep. In the middle of the night, Sherlock Holmes gets up. And he says, oh my God. He looks up and he wakes up Dr. Watson. He says, Doctor, get up. So he says, oh, I'm sleepy. Why? He says, get up, get up, get up. See, something is phenomenal has happened. So he says, I don't know what's happened. He says, look up. What do you see? He says, I see the kind of like the Milky Way, and there's a cluster of stars there. What else do you see? I see that there's the dipping star, the Saptarishi. So he was talking in a very erudite way, explaining the very structure of the stars, how well informed he was, and so on. And Sherlock Holmes just kept looking at him. He says, what else? He says, I don't know. What do you want me to say? I've done everything that I could tell. He says, stupid idiot. Do you know somebody stole our tent in the middle of the night while we were sleeping? When we went to sleep, we could not see any of this. Now you're seeing this. Something so obvious, how could you not see that? I tell you, this may seem like a very interesting, innocuous story. But can I say this? This is what the life of a normal, idiotic person is. And so we can even just say that. Anadi mayaya suptaha jivaha prabudhyate yada jiva prabudhyate. He says that we are asleep to our own reality. It is hidden inside of you, something very obvious. But we are so focused on what we see that we are unable to understand the glory of the seer. Okay, I understand that. Now the question is, so what do you want me to do? So this is very well explained. I mean, all these are all over. It's not at only one place. But what struck me when I was reading this verse from Shvetashvatara Upanishad, this is chapter 6, verse number 13, if you want to look it up. Beautiful. That kind of captures the essence of the Karika number 1 through 16. It goes in a different way. It says, Nityo Nityanam चेतनश्चेतनानाम् एकः बहुनां यो विदधाति कामान् तत्कारणं सांख्ययोग अधिगम्यं ज्ञात्वा देवं मुच्यते सर्वपाशैः. A beautiful verse. Nityo nityanam चेतनश्चेतनानाम् एको बहुनां यो विदधाति कामान् तत्कारणं सांख्ययोग अधिगम्यं ज्ञात्वा देवं मुच्यते सर्वपाशैः. I'll give you the English translation of that. So this is the Atma, the Paramatma. He is the eternal among the eternal, the conscious among the conscious, and though non-dual, fulfills the desires of many. He who knows him, the luminous Ishvara, the great cause, to be realized by Sankhya and Yoga, is freed from all limitations. Adhigamyam jnatva devam muchyate sarvapashaihi. This is a verse that I could spend several classes, and I don't know. I just love these verses. So I might do that, but I want to just focus on what I am trying to analyze amongst these 5 or 6 Karikas. So here's the thing. There is a section in this verse which says, Sankhya Yoga Adhigamyam Jnatva Devam Muchyate Sarvapashaihi. Pasha means the binding ropes, because really that's exactly what it is. I'm bound by my own thoughts. I live within the limitations of my mistakes, and I need to get out of it. How? I'll comment on the Pasha word. Swami Akhandananda ji gives an absolutely marvelous commentary. Brand new, I had not seen that before. And he gives the meaning to the word Pasha, which I'll come to that in a minute. But let me now focus on the main thing I'm pointing out, which is Sankhya Yoga Adhigamyam Jnatva. So the question is, how do I become free? What is it? Okay, I understand the problem. Actually, I don't completely understand the problem, because if I completely understand the problem, the solution is already obvious. And the reason the solution is not obvious is that I don't completely understand the problem. But generally speaking, you said, okay, fine, what do you want me to do? Okay, all right, tell me the way out of it. There it says, Sankhya Yoga Adhigamyam Gyatva. Tat Karanam Sankhya Yoga Adhigamyam Gyatva. So here there are 2 words used. And by the way, I would say this, that many times words are used that are not properly understood by an uneducated student. And this Sankhya and Yoga is a good example of that. So, we are given to understand as we begin to study the various schools of thought. Now, we have already done it ourselves a few times, and I'm sure you have studied this. And so what happens is, this is a certain viewpoint. What are the various schools saying? So there is the Purvamimamsa. So these are Karmakandinaha, which gives Kramamukti. That means that you cannot become Muktar Sadhyo Muktaha. But if you keep on improving, then you go to Swargaloka, then upper Swargaloka. Hopefully you don't come back to the Manushya then you go to Brahmaloka, and then you... So this is the Krama Mukti. This is the Karma. Then we have the Uttaramimamsa, which is Advaita Vedanta, which is no, this is never going to end. You have to do that by proper understanding right where you are. And this is what we are doing. We are all students of Uttaramimamsa. Then we have Vaisheshikas, then we have Sankhya, then we have Yoga, and there are lots of other schools of thought that do not accept the Vedas, like Buddhas, Jainas, Christians, Muslims. So we have all these viewpoints that are there. So when you study the words Sankhya and Yoga, what do your thoughts go to? Oh, this is some kind of a school of thought. And like in the case of yoga, you have the Patanjali Yoga, where you have all these yama, niyama, etc., all the paths that you have to do. Then you go to Samadhi. We've already made a comment on this, and we can see the problems in doing so. Anyway, what my point was, that the same word, Sankhya and Yoga, if not properly understood in the context of what is being taught, is misunderstood to be an external school of thought. You know, this can also be looked upon as Paroksha Jnanam versus Aparoksha Jnanam. Right? Paroksha Jnanam means something which is away from you. A school of thought, you know, we can say that we don't agree with all the schools of thought. It should be Uttaramimamsa, Advaita Vedanta. And though these other ones are separate from us, this could be a Paroksha Jnanam, right? But really, the main purpose of these schools of thought are to convert Paroksha Jnanam into Aparoksha Jnanam. So this is what I was just talking about, understanding the meaning of the words Sankhya and Yoga. So Swami Akhandananda goes into this in great detail, and it's just marvelous. He says the word Sankhya and Yoga really means Viveka and Vairagya. How? Okay. Now this is the main topic. This is the main topic of the Karikas, Sankhya. And this is the main topic of this particular verse. Nitya Nityanam, Chetanas Chetananam, Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadhati Kaman Tat karanam Sankhya Yoga Adhigamya Gyatva Devam Muchyate Sarva Pashai. This is the thing. Now, so he says that the discrimination is what we need to do, and we don't do it. How is it that we don't do it? So let's look into that. Why is it that I'm unable to do this viveka? So now, for example, if I can just expand on that part of it, we began to do it in the last class. All these are related concepts. They're not unrelated. So, for example, and again, it's the same thing about paroksha jnanam versus aparoksha jnanam. So the Sankhya, if not properly understood, can be looked at a viewpoint. Yoga can be looked externally as a viewpoint. But if it is properly applied to yourself as aparoksha jnanam, that is the real thing. You need to understand that. So let's look at Sankhya first. So what is Sankhya? Sankhya means, it comes from, and this I have seen at various places in our Shastras. Sankhya comes from the word Sankhya. Sankhya means Sankhya means to count. Sankhya means the precise count. Like, for example, supposing you have a bunch of something, like, I don't know, grapes. So you'll say, I had a handful of grapes. Like, sometimes you're doing this recipes. It's very interesting when you try to make recipes. They'll say, okay, just take a handful of dal and put some onions into it and but this is not Sankhya, because for somebody like me who is absolutely clueless about cooking, what I need to do if I go to the internet is very precise. I'll say, make half a cup, which is equal to so many ounces of dal. Take 1 tablespoonful. So this is what is called Sankhya, which means Sankhya means you have to be very precise. So the Sankhya here means a discrimination between two things that appear to be mixed up together, and I need to separate them. So, for example, take Chetanas Chetananam. This is what we did last week, so I'm going to just continue the discussion on that. Chetanas Chetananam. So what we saw last week was, and I'll bring that in as part of this discrimination of the Sankhya, is we miss the presence of Paramatma in our life. We miss the Paramatma. We miss, all these words are the same. Ishvara, Paramatma, Bhagavan, God, Brahman. These are all synonyms, really. So we miss the experience of Paramatma. And because of that, I find myself feeling bound and limited. If I were to know it, then I would be free from my limitations. This is what it is saying. Adhigamyam jnatva devam muchyate sarvapashai. If we were to know the presence of Ishvara, how do we know the presence of Ishvara? Why is it that I don't know it? Because the very nature of Ishvara, the very nature of Paramatma, even the definition, forget about the reality. You see the difference. If you don't see the reality yet, at least you should start with a clear definition. Here, so this is what Sankhya means, a very clear idea, precise idea. What do I mean by that? Paramatma means unlimited. This is the definition, isn't it? It has to be. You cannot define God or Parameshwara or Paramatma as being a limited person. Does that make any sense? No. So the Paramatma has to be infinite, unlimited. Okay? All right, that's the definition. If that is the case, should I not see the presence of Paramatma all the time? See, if you have to fulfill the definition of Paramatma, which is independent of time, it's not as though at one time I saw Paramatma and now I think he's gone. I wish I could regain the sense. No. That's a false Paramatma. So it must be independent of time, must be independent of space. I don't see Paramatma now. Exactly, this is what we all do. I don't see it at this moment because I'm surrounded by my own thoughts and so on and so forth. But if I did some things, if I go on a pilgrimage, Char Dham, if I go to the new Ayodhya temple and Sri Darshan of Sri Ram, then I will be okay. Wonderful. But at this moment, no, I don't see Paramatma. So this is our thinking. We don't really see Paramatma. And I want to see Paramatma. So the question is how? So he says, Chetanas Chetananam. Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. So let's look at these. The discrimination of Chetanas Chetananam. what happens is I am only focused on my conscious ability to see things. I am here. I see the location. I see myself now. And implicit in that is, I don't know if I can continue. What happens if there is an earthquake and I move, if I die? What if I have a heart attack? So my existence, my nityatvam, nityam, my Chaitana is very conditional. I'm looking at it the wrong way. Why? Because I fail to see that my consciousness does not come and go. I may be conscious of any one thing, but that specific consciousness is just a reflected consciousness. Why? Because it is based on a specific location and time and vastu. But don't I see that my consciousness itself is ungenerated and it is already there? I may have to generate a reflected consciousness by opening my eyes, looking at things, evaluating, concluding, all those kinds of things, yes. Swami Kandananda gives this very beautiful example. He says, just look at this. What you are looking at is your reflected consciousness. And the reflected consciousness is subject for manipulation. Is what happens. Supposing you go to a hospital, God forbid, for a very serious operation, painful operation. And I'm glad we're living in this era where you can be knocked out by just a small injection and you don't feel the pain of the surgery through anesthesia. Right? Okay. So what happens is, that is your reflected consciousness. That can be manipulated. So what happens is that it is very interesting to see it this way. Look at the discrimination. This is what Sankhya is. Look at this. So you go in for an operation and you are made into unconscious by anesthesia. Is your consciousness lost? because what was manipulated was your applied consciousness. It is like there is a, just like a bulb. So there is a appliance that reflects the electricity. And the appliance can be turned off and on, but the electricity remains. Think about this. Your consciousness which is not manipulated. Same thing happens when we maybe drink some alcohol. You take some drugs. All these hallucinating, all kinds of things can be done. But what happens is, in and through that, your basic consciousness remains the same. You can see this basic consciousness is not something which is generated, which cannot be manipulated, cannot be touched. How do we know this? This is what aparoksha knowledge is. Just look at it. Is your status of being a sakshi ever interrupted? Ever? This is what the 16th verse is saying. Ajam is not something that came about. Wasn't created. Ajam means this has a beginning. Jam means has a beginning. Ajam means which is non-beginning. Already there. That's you. Anidram. So when you sleep, it's not that your consciousness disappears. You know you were asleep. You can recount it later. I was asleep. You cannot say I was asleep unless you were there observing the sleep. Ajam, anidram, apswapam. You're the one who was dreaming. You're the one who is awake. He says, if you see that you are the eternal Sakshi, how? I know. We cannot even have this class. You cannot be listening to me. I cannot be talking to you. There's nothing possible without an overlay of I know. It's the same when you say I know. I'm listening. And I'm saying I know I'm talking. It's the same I know. Same consciousness. This is the Paramatma. we miss it? You cannot say that there is no Paramatma. Even to say there is no Paramatma, you have to have Paramatma. Swami Kandananda had made this beautiful analogy. He says, sometimes if it's a cloudy day, you can say there is no sun. How do you know there is no sun? Because I see the absence of the sun by the presence of the sunlight. Beautiful. So you cannot say nothing is possible without your Atma, which is always shining, undependent on anything, untouched, adrishtam avyavaharyam. This is the discrimination. You have to see, this is what is meant by Chetanas Chetananam. In and through the various stages of my applied Chetana. So the Jagrata Avastha, the waking state, is also, I'm only observing the applied Chaitanya. And that's what I'm focused on the whole day. Okay, now what do I do after this? Okay, now this class is over, then I got to do this. Oh, I'm a little thirsty, I better have some water. After that, then I've got some work to do. Then I'll be hungry. This is what we all do. And then through that, there is one consciousness which is not visible to you. You know why? Because that is you. You cannot be visible to yourself. Somebody has to say, my God, that's you. Oh, me? How? Why? This is the problem. Because, this is the thing. This is very, very interesting. Sankhya and yoga, going back to the two words, Sankhya means viveka. Viveka means that you should see that if you were given anesthesia, it does not affect your Chetana. It only affects your reflected Chetana, which is what you are involved with. So this is the Sankhya. The discrimination between the non-changing, the cause, tat karanam. Tat here means Paramatma. It means Brahman. And Karana means one who is the very basis without which you cannot have the anesthesia operation. You cannot manipulate your happy hour. You cannot touch it. It is untouchable. Adrishtam abhyavaharyam. That is the Sankhya. Then there is a word called yoga. Why is that important here? Both words are used. Sankhya yoga adhigamyam gyatva devam muchyate sarvapashayi. What is yoga? Yogam means Vairagyam. And what does Vairagyam have to do at this point? Where did that come from? It should be understood that once having known that you, which is nothing but Brahman, as Paramatma, unchanging, always there, not subject to time, that Sankhya having understood, now pay attention to it. Do not get lost. This is the yoga. Structure your life to enjoy, to appreciate yourself, which is the very content of the whole creation. One which is the basis of the whole creation. Na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nema vidyuto kutoyam agnihi tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvam idam vibhati. Know the facts about it first through Sankhya, and then develop the habit of self-appreciation, non-dependency. Stop getting involved with useless things. This is yoga. And so this with push and pull, viveka and vairagya, this is the meaning of Sankhya Yoga, Adhigamyam. Adhigamyam is also very interesting. We had more time, we could do all this. Adhigamyam means, where do you know this? Where? It's like saying, where is Paramatma? It's you, my dear, you. This is the problem. Me? I don't understand. Me? When you say, I don't understand me, you know what that means? You're putting yourself down. Oh, I don't know. I'm just a struggling human being, and so on and so forth. This is the issue. It is non-self-acceptance. It is non-appreciation, really. You feel you're limited because you don't know you are unlimited. So he says, Gyatva devam muchyate sarva pashaihi. In the last few minutes, let me give you an interesting definition of pasha. Now we need to look into this in more detail, some very beautiful things. The pasha means ropes. Like when you are walking your dog, so the leash of the dog is called pasha. So the dog cannot just go away from it. You have to just, and sometimes, when I feel, it's just, what a world this has become. People don't have people to love, they just have dogs. And sometimes when you see these people walking the dog, I am not sure who's walking who. You have, hey, this is interesting. We have a friend who is working as an artist in one of the jobs that my wife has been involved in. And she moved to North Carolina some time ago. And she has a lot of work in this area, and she's very well paid. People fly her out from North Carolina to do the job. And she cannot, she doesn't want to stay here for more than a couple of days. So my wife asked her, why didn't you stay longer? Why do you have to go back and forth? You know what the answer was? Dogs. She has 2 dogs. And they cannot be left in the kennel for more than a week or so. Nobody would accept that. Her poor life is all based on dogs. So the leash of the dog, which one is controlling whom, is not clear to me. Anyway, this is one definition of Pasha. Swami Akhandananda gave a new meaning of the word Pasha, which is beautiful. And I'll only briefly present it to you now because of lack of time, and we'll expand on it some future time. Swamiji says, the word Pasha also refers to the money used in gambling. Money used in gambling. So, these are like chips, except it's not just, silly chips that you use for playing games. These are serious. And in the Mahabharata, the decline of some of the kingdoms was because of gambling. So they would even put down jewelry, and sometimes even their own people they would put down as gambles. Gambling is something like, so the money used in gambling is called Pasha. Okay? If that is understood, Swami Akhandananda says, listen, are you a gambler? So we'll say, no, I'm not a gambler. I know there's some maybe people gambling. No, I'm not. I cannot imagine myself to be a gambler. I may do in Diwali time, 10 rupee lost about 50 rupees and so on. That's all part and but I don't gamble. Swamiji says, are you sure you don't gamble? Do you know you're gambling all your life without realizing it? How? Swamiji says, you get into your car, you gamble. If you come back safe and sound, you win. If you don't, you lose. You cross the street, it's a gamble. If you cross without being hit, you win. If you get hit, you lose. if you really analyze your life, close your eyes, you are gambling. The food that I eat, will it suit me? Is it good for me? Gamble. No, I think I'll have it anyway. I think one of the worst exports from India is samosa. Fried food. There's got some peas and some potatoes that might be okay, but most of it is just useless stuff. But you think people will resist from it, especially if you go to a party and there's like a whole bunch of samosas there, and you don't have to pay for it. Gamble. Should I eat it? No, I really shouldn't. But maybe, I don't know. It's just, okay, let me just grab it. Gamble, gamble, gamble. Swamiji says, I'm sorry, why do you want to gamble your life away? Why? Just be secure. Stop gambling. So that's what it says. Gyatva devam muchyate sarva pashaihi. Anyway, so the crux of the Karikas is discrimination. And then what it means is, don't just keep it as a paroksha jnanam, but see your life as a difference between your sakshitvam and the fact that you are not observing it, you are not conscious of it, you are not appreciating it, you don't enjoy it. Do it. So this is the message of these karikas. That's what it says. When does, okay, in the first 11 to 15 it was, okay, I can see the need for it, but then what happens? So the 16th does it, he says, Yada jivaha prabudhyate. Prabudhyate means once you see that, oh my gosh, I am nothing ever happens to me. Advaitam buddhyate tada. So, more commentary in the future. Om asato ma satkamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityor ma amritam gamaya. Om purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate purnasya purnamadaya purnameva vashishyate. Om shanti shanti shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Very slow, it's not loading yet. Ah, there we go. All right. Very nice to see you all. See you soon. See you next week. Hari Om.